Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Silmarillion Film Project. This is session number 19 in season 6, and I am joined tonight. Dave, unfortunately, couldn't be with us, which is why I'm clumsily doing the intro myself. I am joined by Marie Prosser, and looks like Nick Palazzo is just coming in here. So here we go. He's was a little bit delayed this evening, but glad he's joined us. And we have a special guest tonight, Katrin from Switzerland, who I should say is heroically joining us at like 4:30 in the morning over there in Switzerland. Katrin, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi there, a long time listener, first time caller, so to say, for
Yes,
the obvious
yes.
times and reasons.
Yeah, Katrin has been a listener and participant in the Film Project on our discussion boards for several years now. Katrin is an artist who has done several different pieces for us and thinking through some of our previous art commissions in previous years. And today is our art commissioning show. So we're going to be thinking through the visual look of season 6. There's Nick Palazzo. Welcome, Nick. Glad you could make it. So we're going to be looking at a bunch of different topics, thinking about the visuals and how we want to do. So we're not going to be showing too much in the way of art. The idea here, you may remember, our regular listeners may recall that we did the music commissioning show a few weeks back with Philip Menzies. We were kind of going through different characters, different scenes, different ideas and concepts and things that we're going to want to think about how that's going to be represented in the music of the show. And so similarly today, we're going to be going through a bunch of different things, thinking about the visuals, what they're going to look like. And here we have a kind of a broader invitation. Let me just jump ahead here since I'm already talking about it to the art commissioning slide. A broader invitation to anyone who is listening and who would like to take a stab at things, who would like to produce art. We have a bunch of people who have been enjoying listening to this broadcast, thinking through with us, coming along with us on this project to imagine our way into an adaptation of the Silmarillion, and who have produced pictures. Sometimes they're costumes, sometimes they're like landscapes and locations or props. We've had people actually create props and sculptures and things like that, trying to capture the idea that we're various things, whether it be props or creatures or whatever. So this is the day in which we're gonna try to go fairly systematically. Of course, we won't hit on every possible topic or idea, but we're gonna talk about all these things and then invite folks to jump in and actually produce art. But let me go back because I skipped my announcements, and I don't want to skip my announcements because this week is the last week of Signum's annual fundraising campaign, which is a big deal. We've had a wonderful fundraising campaign so far, and a great a bunch of contributions to our annual fund, which is so exciting. And this week, this time in the annual fundraising campaign, despite the fact that Signum University is a nonprofit university which really couldn't exist without the generosity of our supporters, I don't like to spend every week begging for money. So our annual fundraising campaign is the time of the year when we both, sort of talk about this and celebrate the support from our community. The finale of that is happening this weekend on Saturday, November 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be having our finale event. I'm going to start it with my State of the University address, where I'm going to be talking about all the stuff that's happened over this past year, the things that we have planned that are going to be coming up this coming year, kind of putting that into the context of the sort of the vision of the university, what we're doing and where we're heading. It's always a big event. The State of the University address is something I look forward to every year. And then we're going to have a bunch of different update sessions and fun things happening and games and prizes and all kinds of things. We're going to have a major update from the Signum University Press. We're going to have some little sample mini classes from our space program that folks can see and participate in. It's going to be great fun. So that's all starting at 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, November 19th. We'll go until, I don't know, 9, 10 p.m., something like that. I'm stopping early this year. Anyway, that'll be, that's going to be great fun. And then we do have regional moot coming up, Osmoot in Brisbane, Australia. So excited about that, the end of January. Excited to be headed down to Australia in midsummer there in January. So anyway, that's gonna be great fun too. We are finished with our fall moot season, and Osmoot is going to be a really fun way to kick off the spring season. So anyway, okay, so I want to do. Let's do it at the beginning before I forget. I want to do a drawing to thank folks, our live attendees, for coming. So, because I've been doing this during all my broadcasts this week, and we have a very special prize to give away today, which is a token for our space program. So this is a token. It's a $150 value. This token is usable for 1 month course in our space program. Any course that you would want. It doesn't expire, so you can use it anytime you want. You can go to signumuniversity.org/space in order to see the upcoming courses that we have and everything. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to, in the Twitch chat. So we're going to do this in Twitch because the majority of our listeners are on Twitch here this evening. So I'm going to open up a giveaway here in Twitch. And there we go. Now I'm going to open a giveaway. The Twitch chat has a very convenient little built-in giveaway function that I'm going to use. That way I don't have to roll my dice and count things. So it's handy to have Moobot do this for me here. So yeah, so what you have to do is, just as those of you who are in Twitch chat can see, add your name to the raffle by typing !raffle, and then we will do a drawing when folks have had a chance to do that. So we're going to start the discussion, and then I'm going to remember to go back and close the drawing and do the drawing. All right. Okay. So that's what's going to happen. We get the whole map this week because we're looking over everything here. Okay. And yes, so back to the art commissioning, back to actually what we're talking about here tonight, and a reminder that I'm noticing at the end of the slide that I forgot to say before. We are going to do another session at the end of season 6. When we finish discussing our way through the whole season, we'll come back and we will talk about, look at some of the artwork that people have produced and kind of talk our way through that. So that will be fun. All right. So let's talk about visual topics. So we're starting with costumes here. And we should, of course, shockingly, begin thinking about Beren and Luthien, right? These are our major, but not our only characters we want to focus on. But we definitely do want to focus on them. So how are we doing? So Beren is going to be pretty ragged at the beginning, right? I mean, we will have had Beren's costume from last year when he's, one of the outlaws, right?
Right. So the reason costumes are first on the list is because I made the list. But
therefore costumes are the most important thing. Yeah. So,
I thought so.
Right.
But the general idea is that Beren and the rest of Barahir's band were living in Dorthonion up until the very end of last season as regular people living in Dorthonion. And then the battle happens. So in the aftermath of the battle, they become outlaws, but they haven't lived through the life of being outlaws yet. in season 5. So in season 6, we're meeting them after they've been on their own in this little group for years.
Yes.
Right. So that's the shift and the transition into the people of Ladros to the outlaws of Dorthonion.
Right. So Beren's costuming was not in the best of shapes before his journey towards Doriath, is what we're saying. Anyway, okay, so so how ragged do we want him to be, by the way, when he lands? Like rags, like literally rags? Are his clothes hanging off him? And if so, to what extent? Like because I mean, and it's part like also how injured do we want him to be? I mean, how do we really want him to come staggering and collapsing into Doriath looking like, you know, someone on the verge of death and someone who's just been, you know, or do we just want him to look kind of beat up? What's our sort of threshold here?
Well, we do need him to collapse, so to like fall down and pass out. So he at least has to be completely exhausted at the end of his strength, so to speak. I don't think we want the audience to think he's in danger of death at that point. Like, we're not supposed to be worried if he's going to survive to the next episode.
Right.
Like, once he makes it through the girdle, we're like, oh, he made it. So
not so much blood is what you're saying. It's not like he's coming in staggering with multiple.
Right. And he has just escaped several fights with giant spiders. So he may have some wounds and injuries, but even if we're worried about him, we're not worried that he's going to die.
Right. Yeah. So we're not showing him bleeding out here or something like that. So, okay.
He'll do that.
Battered. Yeah.
Like probably the state of the cast of Walking Dead, not the actual Walking Dead people, right?
I was going to say
the
it's
main
not a high
cast.
standard there.
No, the main cast, right?
Okay.
They which, by the way, Barry McCreary did the music for that as well. By the way, if it was, it's on his list of things. I been rewatching it recently, and I keep seeing his name pop up. I'm like, oh yeah. Probably some evidence of a lack of hygiene over a little while. I'm always bothered when shows and movies show like ancient or medieval peoples as just completely unwashed all the time, which of course nobody was ever like that. You would like disease would kill those people off, right? But a guy who's been traveling in the woods in mortal danger for a significant period of time, sure. Yeah,
exactly. And he's when does he get a costume change?
Right. So there's
Nargothrond.
The question. Well, that's the thing is the question is, does Lúthien provide him with any clothing in that year?
That's my first
hanging out in the woods
question.
in Doriath?
Because it is a while, and depending on how ragged he is, I mean, again, if his clothes are literally hanging off him, it's kind of. I mean, you'd think she would, and it's going to get cold. I mean, like seasons are going to change.
Right. But the real question is, what do we want him to look like when he walks into Thingol's court?
Yes.
Because if Lúthien has put clothes on him, he's going to look like an elf of Doriath. You know, cleaned up, nice stuff, walking in next to Thingol's daughter. Or he's still wearing his raggedy outlaw gear, in which case he looks completely out of place there. So it's more the dynamic of how do you want that scene to play out? That's how you choose whether or not he got a new costume in Doriath. But he definitely can get new clothes in Nargothrond.
Definitely in Nargothrond, I agree. But that was exactly what I was kind of building up to myself, is that does seem to be the crux. I mean, and also, I have to say, it tells me something about the dynamics between Beren and Luthien, and also maybe something about Lúthien's character. In a couple different ways, potentially. Like, if she doesn't notice and doesn't care, like, oh, you're dressed in rags, but that's all right. I don't like you for your fashion sense, so I'm not bothered, and therefore I'm not going to even think of it. Again, I would think it's going to be, even in Doriath, winter comes, and so it's probably going to be cold. And this also brings up, by the way, another interesting point that Senalicia was making just a little while back, which is being friends with the animals a bonus to his clothing situation or a hindrance? It's a fair question.
Right, because there'd be less leather, more wool, it sounds like.
And yeah, he's going to have to chase down a sheep, shear it. And, Lúthien could make him something. Yeah, I mean, like, that's... So...
I just wanted to say, we can have seamstress Lúthien if she repairs his stuff, washes it at least, or helps him mend something. That's also an option.
So...
Or make something new.
One thing there are things to like and not to like about that, I think, for sure. One thing to like about it is that it makes the, hey, can I get a loom, not come out of nowhere when she's locked up in the tree, right? If we already have introduced the fact that spinning and weaving is a thing she does, then it's less, I don't know. But... so we can in some way anticipate that. And there's an interesting kind of symmetry to the idea of her basically making, a garment for him and then making a garment for herself later on. And so if like the two of them are basically traveling in clothes that she made, that's a little bit interesting, right? There are things not to like about this either, right? I mean, certainly I can't imagine... I can't imagine Lúthien being like, I've met a man in the woods, so let me go spin him some clothes, would be like, the favorite angle on this from a feminist perspective, for sure. But I don't know.
Not to mention, if she merely repairs his existing clothes, like, what's he wearing while he's waiting for that to happen?
Yeah. No, the actual repair of his clothes is awkward for that reason, for sure.
Yeah.
Nick, the answer to that is layers. Right. You can take one layer off and still have the other layer on. It's fine. He doesn't have to be sitting around shirtless while she's doing this.
Based on some of the things we've established about the elves, though, it wouldn't be surprising to me if Lúthien was unaware that the state of his dress would be a problem as winter came on. Because we know that the elves are less vulnerable to cold than we are. Yes. Kelkorax, I get it, but that's Arctic cold. That's not the same.
Right. There's cold and then there's cold.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Doriath. Yeah.
So as long as his clothes are sturdy enough, when he gets them, presumably, they were made before the Dagger Bragalot, then they can hold up enough that there's no immediate need for him to have a new set of clothing right that second.
Yeah, I don't think we need him to be in rags or completely everything's tattered and falling off of him. But certainly there can be damage to his gear. Like he can have rips and tears and things like that because he got attacked by a giant spider. Like that has to. most outfits don't really survive that.
Yeah,
we could also just have him ask for needle and thread, like
to fix his own clothes. Yeah,
a man can sue.
What?
Yeah, but given the tight nature of episode 4 world, this would be happening.
No,
that's probably
we
not.
We don't have to actually depict almost any of this necessarily.
Yeah.
No, it's just mostly a question of trying to figure out what did happen so that we know what to show, so that it makes sense.
As a parallel, Viggo Mortensen had suggested that Aragorn as a ranger would be mending his own garments, and so he was like, if I have any damage to my costume, I want to be able to just do a rough stitch to like a field repair on it, so that on the overall effect is that this garment has gone through some things. Right. And so he repaired it himself, which is probably not how costumes are usually handled on set. And right. They're like, sure, whatever, go ahead, Vigo. And it's not like there was ever a scene of Strider in the background sitting there mending
stitching, right?
Yeah, right. But the result was on screen. So I think that's what we're talking about, is things like, exactly. Oh, Beren mended it would look like this. If Lúthien gave him a new garment, it would be like this. You know, we're just deciding what happened, and then it would just be on screen without explanation.
And exactly as you said, Marie, the big question is, what do we want him to look like when he enters Doriath?
So he probably has a rough sewing kit on him. So what he wakes up like and what he appears before Thingol like are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. He can be a little bit patched with it. But again, it shouldn't look like he's wearing, unless the new clothes he's wearing are explicitly Doriath clothes and we're implying that she gave him a set of clothes, he shouldn't look like he's wearing a new set of clothes. He should look like he's wearing, as just exactly what you're describing, Marie, field patched.
Yeah. Now the other issue is parallels, of course, to Aragorn and Arwen for later, and much later. We know that Galadriel dresses Aragorn as an elf lord before sending him off to reunite with Arwen when they get engaged. So having someone at some point put Beren in elf clothes would be a good idea, but that could always be Finrod and Nargothrond, right? And when they get reunited at Tolsirion, that's the parallel to the Aragorn Arwen story. It doesn't have to be part of the Doriath storyline.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the Aragorn and Arwen pair, but I don't know. I have to admit, I'm kind of liking the idea of her making him like a cloak specifically. It doesn't have to be a fancy magic cloak woven out of her own hair. But what if
he's going to need winter gear? Yeah.
He's going to need winter gear. His cloak could be something that did get ripped to shreds, right? Or closer to shreds. His clothing was able to be saved, right? But and again, but once again, I'm thinking about the presentation before Thingol. And I would think I think we agreed last time that they're basically engaged, openly, explicitly engaged when presented, before Thingol. And so, at that point, it would seem very natural. And what's more, I think it would be a good way to visually kind of signal this in some way, right? Like, I'm going to think Lúthien probably makes her own clothes, right? I mean, I'm not saying she never wears anything that isn't made by herself, but again,
the ability to make clothes is a skill she has.
This is a thing she does.
Custom made, they're elves. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, so I think it would.
They're in the wild for months, right? So, and they're engaged. They can make presents for each other after like months and months. And like Beren can craft something. Maybe he crafts like, I don't know. First thing that came to my head was like a flower crown or something. And she gives him a beautiful cloak. And then they just stand
there. What if he carves her a
like,
nightingale or something
Yes.
I don't know.
Exactly. Out of a just some kind of gift that is like, and then it's less like this poor man stumbled into my forest. There you go, clothes. And it's more like, well, we'll get engaged, present, you know.
Well, because the other thing that I'm thinking is, again, like the visual effect that they would look like a pair when they come in, you know.
If only he had a ring to give her.
I know, that would be convenient. But yeah, no, I mean, they don't have to look like a well-matched pair. I think he should look out of place, and he will look out of place. He's not going to be fancily dressed. He's going to still be in his rugged and worn outlaw clothing. But I think a nice Lúthien-made cloak on top of that, with his outlaw gear underneath, would be a good kind of compromise where it shows like, because if she would have to know that if she brings him by the hand into the court looking like a beggar, this is going to put things on I mean, I would think that there would be a kind of a statement there of like, yes, he like not trying to conceal the fact that he's different. I don't care that he looks raggedy, but he belongs here, right? He belongs here, and the two of us are a matched pair. I mean, if we're going to say that they are, you know, that she is presenting him as her betrothed before her father, it's hard for me to imagine she would not fancy him up even a little bit for that. I mean, she would be putting him in a really, I mean, it's going to be awkward for him no matter what, but she'd have to know she was making it worse for him if he looked like a vagabond.
Right. If she's going to do this, she has to at least try. So if he's wearing his freshly made elf cloak, that at least ameliorates the situation a little bit.
He clearly looks like a battered human outlaw, right? But with a fancy Lúthien made cloak.
But let's back up a step here. It's important to remember that he wasn't born an outlaw, right?
No.
And his outlaw estate is, you know, he was an outlaw in his own, in the place that he, for, you know, had every reason to expect he would be the next leader of. So he's a person of rank. Now, of course, he's a person of rank among humans, which isn't the same as a person of rank among elves.
No.
But his clothing would have been of the best make possible for the men of Ladros, which I think, and we've talked about this, would be significant in comparison to other human cultures.
Because of their time in Nargothrond, absolutely, especially compared to the Haladin, obviously.
So his clothes were likely of quite good make.
Mm-hmm.
So while they would be worn and patched,
worn
and patched, but still, you know, I have clothing that you know I got more than 5 years ago. I mean, I don't wear it every day, but you know.
Right. You weren't fighting giant spiders in it, but yes, you're right. Yeah.
Right.
I was gonna say, have you trekked through Nangifnogorth before?
I mean, I have encountered some spiders. I spend a lot of time in attics and crawl spaces.
Yes, you do.
If there's a spider to be found, I run into it.
Right. Yeah. I hear that. But I agree. We do want to remember that when we talk about, his outlaw look, we are talking about, you should be able to tell that his clothes were nice, not fancy necessarily, but definitely good quality.
Yeah. Not elaborate.
Yeah. So are we okay with the cloak idea?
Yeah.
The nice but non-magical cloak, and she can be wearing something similar. So again, the thing I like about him having that cloak, they come in looking like a match set. Yeah.
Most of the artwork I've seen of Beren and Luthien is here's him, here's her. They look like they don't go together at all,
right?
And that's deliberate and intentional.
Sure.
But then you have to have something that connects them. And if this is her presenting this guy to her dad, she's got to at least try.
I can't imagine her not trying.
Idea.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, she can be as unworldly as you like, right? You know, she might not care, but she's got to be aware of the sort of the politics of the moment, right? And even if she accepts him and is not bothered, she has to know what the effect that it's going to have on him. So okay, no, I hadn't thought of that before, but I really like that. And as I say, that prepares us for her cloak making later on, right? She would have okay, so but what's she wearing? What's she wearing when she? So what do you wear to dance in the woods? Exactly.
Well, if you're Lúthien, you wear a blue dress.
Yes.
Yeah, true enough.
Yes, I think a blue mantle is something of the only implications we have from the label of what she would be wearing. So I think you could use blue generally as her favorite color, and whenever you show her in different kind of things, you always have a prominent like part of the thing be blue, or like something that's like the overmantle or the whatever it is.
Okay, I'm going to confess some ignorance. In the question of costuming, my ignorance is quite profound. I've never actually understood what a mantle is. When people use that word, I always kind of nod, and I'm like, some kind of garment that's like loose and sort of flowing, I guess, but I don't really know what a mantle is.
It depends on who's wearing it.
Okay.
If it's a woman, I believe it's referring to like the outer dress. If it's a man, it's usually kind of a cloakish sort of thing.
Well, I think it's quite a broad, because I could imagine there are things that cover like the shoulders, go a bit over, if you were wearing a dress and a top, then you would just be covering like two-thirds of everything with a mantle, and it gives a sort of layer effect. But I think it could also for a woman be a cloakish situation, because I think it's very broad. But
okay, so
also
it's
not English native speakers.
but it's outerwear, like it's more like a cloak.
Kind of layer situation.
It's a no sleeve situation and
It's
a
a no
layer
sleeve
situation. Yeah,
layers and no
so
sleeves.
if you think of outerwear, top layer, cloak,
Okay,
that works with mantle.
Okay. See, I never knew that.
But
I never knew exactly what Faramir was giving to Eowyn, for instance, right? His mother's mantle. And I'm like,
yes,
starry
okay.
mantle. Okay,
Well,
it's a garment.
When I made that costume piece, I made myself a blue cloak and I embroidered stars on it.
Okay,
well, I didn't embroider. I got someone else to embroider patches and I put them all over it, and then I embellished it. But the point is, I made a cloak when I made that starry mantle.
Okay, right. I mean, I could gather. I mean, there are some things I could gather from context, right? Like, I mean, I knew it wasn't. I knew it wasn't underwear, but I didn't know if it was like a coat or if it was like a dress or if it was, Okay.
No sleeves is the idea. So
no sleeves. See, I had no idea that sleeves were counterindicated in mantles. So it's something that just kind of lies over your shoulders. And is it cold weather gear? Like, is it something you wear for warmth? Or I mean, can it be? Or is that implied by it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the problem is you have a language thing, because I'm not sure. In German, a mantle is basically just your name for a coat. Some kind of warm winter coat, and I think a mantle is some sort of adjacent thing to it. Like,
we get mantle from the French, just to clarify. Sorry.
Yes, yes. And from French it comes to cloak. So meets at the linguistic barrier between France and Germany, in the middle of between a cloak and a mantle, and then it becomes the mantle.
Okay.
This isn't a very good way to see this image, but
you're in the way there, Nick.
Right. Well, So yes, we're looking at like the midriff of this, or the back, lower back of this.
But it's it's the green thing that she's wearing.
The green thing she's wearing is a mantle. That looks like. See, I would not put that in the cloak category. I would put that in the dress category myself. What I'm seeing there.
Oh yeah, overdress. I think, I don't know if this is true, but I thought that mantle, it has to do with birds, right? So the idea that it goes over the shoulders would be.
This does go over the shoulders.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay. I'm saying, so the idea is that something that is over the shoulders and draping.
Over the shoulders like and draping.
Like a cloak. But like from birds.
Well, clothing,
mantled wings, right?
It also got to be said, these come from times when there wasn't like a standard dictionary. Those
thing.
No, that's a mantle and you don't.
I'm just
and that's things that,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn. I've never
But
never understood
outer-
this word.
Outer garment for sure.
Outer garment for sure.
And
Yes.
I think the no sleeves thing is pretty significant.
Okay.
At least in English. I don't know.
Right. So
we
what
can't
this
speak to French or German.
So therefore, the fact that she's wearing a blue mantle is actually of comparatively limited help in under. I mean, so she has a blue outer thing.
Tolkien never describes clothing very well.
Yeah.
Ever.
Ever.
So
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm just appreciating that there was this tone, not quite approaching bitterness, but of flatness to the. I just was listening to the tone of a costumer who loves Tolkien and has a very small grievance against Tolkien.
It's not a grievance because
No.
it is like everything else he does with the visual arts. He invokes an idea of
Right.
something.
And then leaves
So
it
his
open for you to
descriptions-
imagine. Yeah.
Right. His descriptions are about leaving things open-ended. He's not about the let me meticulously detailed give you a blow by blow of what's going on
Right.
here.
Right.
Unless it's the vegetation. But the general idea is that he doesn't. He just kind of like paints this big picture of like, here's how you should feel about this, moving on. And so we get the description of Aragorn as Strider and the prancing pony as this really iconic image of this figure in the corner, and and so people are like, oh yeah, that's a great description. What color clothing is he wearing? Browns and greens. Okay, cool. What is he wearing?
Right.
Clothes is about all I can tell you about what he's wearing. He's got boots on. The boots are described in some detail, and there is a cloak. But as for what he's actually wearing, clothes.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's one of the reasons like that a Faramir's starry mantle is striking, because we rarely get that kind of detail. Yeah, like it's an actual.
There's a reason I made it. It's like, wow, a description from the books.
Yeah,
exactly. Are also quite a point of pride. So there's like a focus on significant, maybe patterned like overclothes, like vests, or like you have the normal clothes and then you have the statement piece that gives it meaning, sort of that he likes to do.
Yeah.
So
it's not that he never described anything. We have a general idea what Tom and Goldberry look like, for instance.
Well, Tom, of course, is a bad data point. I mean,
for many reasons.
For many reasons, it's one of the many reasons in which Tom Bombadil is a bad data point. Yeah.
But we have the color scheme, and like that's what he usually gives.
We
us.
sure do.
Of a color scheme. And so with Lúthien, the color scheme is she has dark hair and a blue cloak, and there's lilies, I believe, are embroidered. Golden lilies are on one of her outfits, right?
Yeah, and
I forget if that was one of the passages that got crossed out, because I know that one he redid it a few times in the line.
Yes,
yeah.
Something I took from that was basically, if you have her hair will be relatively like visually, you can blocking. I don't have the vocabulary for in the morning 5 at this point. But it graphically makes up a part of her appearance, and then you have a dominant blue mantle, and I think with the rest you can sort of have a few color accent like flowers, maybe some neutral, so it doesn't get too busy. I think that would be a totally workable.
Is she wearing blue all the way down, or is she in a blue mantle and then something else underneath?
She's probably wearing a sleeved, not undergown, but a
I mean, she'd have a dress as well as.
Yes.
I mean, I'm asking if she's wearing anything underneath. I mean, is it going to be blue also? I mean, is the blue mantle going to be over a different color?
It would look better if it was not blue.
Well, you can do some really interesting things with contrasting colors with the layers, or you can do different shades of one dominant color. So you can do it either way. She could wear a lighter blue underneath and then a darker blue on top, and that would be striking as well. Or it could be gold or orange, or a vibrant, completely different color, and you could do something with that. So there's different directions you can go.
Yeah.
And she's a princess. She probably has more than one outfit.
Probably. but you could have like something that's recognizable as
her signature item. Yeah.
And
which I would think would be the mantle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, and of course that would be another good way visually to signal people that time has passed when he's seeing her in the woods, right? She would be in a different outfit. Okay. What do we want to capture in Lúthien's, like, how Lúthien dresses generally? I'm thinking she's going to be in like kind of and sorry, Maria, I think this is a technical term, swooshy, because dancing, right? I mean, this is going to be she's dressed for dancing in swooshy stuff,
right. So generally speaking, if what you mean is when she twirls, everything kind of spins and is swirly.
That's the kind of thing that I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Then so basically, it's a pretty full skirt.
I think so.
Yeah.
Probably.
So, I mean,
but she's got to be able to run without. I mean, we don't really want
you
her.
You got a lot
like,
of volume when you do that.
Yeah.
So it might not be a full circle skirt, but it could be a very full skirts so that they can be swished around for dancing purposes.
Yeah, dancing, but also running is what we have to have her dressed for, basically.
I think she could also have a range of clothing. Like if she's doing some really ambitious dancey stuff, it should be more mobile. And if she's strolling around and twirling a couple times, then it can be more flowing. And
yeah, so that's where it'll come in handy to have different outfits for her in the meeting Beren and Luthien episode, because we can pick the outfit for what she's doing in that particular scene. But we are going to have to pick like a traveling outfit for her where she doesn't get to change her clothes out all the time.
Yes.
Which will be in for the rest of the season. And that would be...
And this reminds me then, that actually leads to one of my following questions. Oh, wait, hang on a second. Katrin, you mentioned her hair. How long, on the average day, how long are we imagining Lúthien's hair to be?
Well, she can put it up if it's long. But I always imagine her having reasonably long hair when she starts out, and then depending on how you interpret what's happening, maybe at some point she gets a haircut, but I don't know.
Middle of the back? Huh? Middle of the back? All the way down to the thighs? Like, I mean, there would be an argument to be made for her to have extraordinarily long hair, right? As a setup for the cloak that's going to be, that basically so that her black hair, as it is swirling around her, anticipates the shadow cloak that she's going to make out of her hair, right? So there's something to be said for having her have, when he meets her, and when she's at home in Doriath, in the main frame, the main, not the frame, but the main story, that she normally, like, her normal is really, really long. I don't know that we don't have to do that.
We don't have to, but if it's shorter than about waist length, it might not feel like it's long enough.
It would seem
a normal person that would still be long hair, but on Lúthien it's like, but it doesn't count as long hair unless it's at least to her waist.
Right.
The waist does also give that mantle impression. If you open it up, it also it makes something, that impression like you had, that like mid-length mantle.
Yeah.
But I think if it's extremely long before like that sequence, it feels like a statement where you're like, okay, she's been winning the longest hair contest every year because that's her thing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would not want her hair to be down to her ankles. That would be...
Well, there were some suggestions. Carrie was suggesting her knees. Someone else was thinking at least like upper thighs. I mean, I think that's on the table at least. Another thing, by the way, that I would add is the scene described in the poem, within the mantle of her hair, right? Like, the longer her hair is, the more flexibility we have.
But for a scene like that, it really doesn't need to be that long.
No, it doesn't. But
I agree that the longer, why not? Like, she seems to have fairly long hair based on the descriptions that we have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fairly long hair. She's an elf princess. It's got to be fairly long. It can't.
I mean, it can be as long as she wants it to be, but yeah, no, I mean, I think I would think that at least to begin. Now, the next question, of course, is post magical haircut scene, right? How long's her hair when she's traveling?
Right. So we get to think about how we want that to play out, because one way you can handle it is if her hair is growing magically long and fast, she cuts it off. It grows magically
to whatever length she wants it to be. Right. Yeah.
And then she stops the magic and ta-da, I'm back to normal. So she could go into the scene and come out of the scene with the same length of hair. But do we want to show that she's changed in some way? Chopping her hair off.
Yeah, the opportunity for a visual cue to say she is not in the same headspace that she was in before is a good. I mean, that seems like an obvious kind of opportunity. I don't know that it needs to be radical. Like, I don't think she needs to be cropped short or buzzed or something like that, right? Which would be maximally striking, right? But something like shoulder length or bob length or something afterwards. I mean,
the thing is, whatever choice we make, we have to stick with for a while, because if she's not magically growing her hair long anymore, like, you can get away with it in that scene to grow it back as long as you want, but after that point you kind of just have to keep it and go with it. I mean, there is time passing, but not a lot of time, so people's hair can grow over the course of a year,
right?
But if we chop it off to her ears, it's not going to grow back down to her waist by the end of the season.
Though Lúthien, she can still do that, presumably at will. But
we've just shown her doing it. But again, it's if it was a meaningful thing that it got chopped off and cut short, then undoing that would feel also meaningful in a way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, what I always imagined was that you can see not only her changed state of mind maybe, but also that she's now entering into a new stage of, like, you can have that what's it called, the threshold that's crossed, and she's like, okay, now I'm going, and it's visually like very clear that this is a different situation too. So I've always been a fan of taking that Rapunzel metaphor rather literally in that respect, but I think if, like, in a year you can grow whatever, like, depending on person, you can grow something like that. So if she's shoulder length, she'll have something over the shoulders for the end of the season. I think that's totally
we have an easy.
This is not elf hair, right? Like, this is not quite long enough to be an elf,
right?
And that's where I was like, if we chop it off all the way up to her ear, people are going to be like, not elf hair for whatever we grow out after.
Well, I think the not elf her dogma can be challenged occasionally.
Yes, for sure.
I think so. But I also think that, like, people feel very strongly about elf hair.
Could one of them be on this very broadcast right now? Perhaps?
Don't forget, though, that we are now training up an entire generation of people who will find that completely normal. But anyway,
so we do have a story beat that kind of helps here. So one thing that we could do is have her come out of here alone with her hair shorn, and she proceeds more or less like that through the rest of the season until she dies. Then when she comes back, her hair can be, it doesn't need to be as long as it was before, but it doesn't have to be the same way it was, because again, she's once again in a different stage of her life.
Well, so, but though, Nick, I would add there's an intermediate story point, and that is the return to Doriath. When she and Beren walk back down the aisle of the throne room in Doriath the second time. Yeah, that's another really important place. She's now returning after, her tremendous adventures and accomplishments.
And it's possible that in the wedding, in preparation for her wedding, she has grown her hair out on purpose. Why not?
Which means
So-
something so different for Lúthien than it means for most
Right.
women growing their
And
hair
we
out
don't-
for their weddings.
Right. And we don't have to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
but
don't.
I do
that-
agree that the coming back to Doriath and showing that she's not the same person who left Doriath, like it's part of the same story. So if we're gonna say let's make her hairstyle different when she leaves, let's keep that different hairstyle at least until she comes back, so the people of Doriath can see her that way. As
Yes.
this is the Lúthien abroad look.
Right.
And then once she has returned, if she wants to grow her hair out before
For the
hunt
wedding, where
yeah.
when she's got to be the most Lúthien that she's ever Lúthien. Yes.
Max
That's
Lúthien
different.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Agreed.
I do like the idea of her presenting herself to the court changed.
I mean, maybe, yeah, and she might like. Would she? So let's say it's shorter, but as you say, it doesn't have to be like ear length. If it's like,
Okay.
and mostly because again, like Lúthien's hair is a big deal. Like her hair,
Right.
like it needs to be
So-
visible.
Shoulder length is like here, right?
Yeah,
So that's still short for someone like Lúthien, not short
Right.
for necessarily someone who's used to having their
Yes.
hair cut and styled.
right.
And then there's past shoulder length, right? So
Right.
like here.
I'm thinking
would be
if
just
if
over
her
the
hair
shoulders.
is like waist length or longer at the beginning, if that's like the default state that she begins in,
Mhm.
having hair even past shoulder length, but no more than collarbone, right, would
Mhm.
still be a very significant change.
Yeah.
Right.
Like this is mid back length on me, right?
Right.
This goes to the middle of my back. So yeah, if I were to chop off about
Yeah.
4 or 5 inches, then it would be this length, just past.
And that's
the
still,
shoulder.
she could still like put it back, tie it back in a ponytail when you're
Mhm.
having
yeah,
a
for
busy
sure.
day. Like I've got to overthrow, Morgoth and Sauron in a row. And so, I'm going to put my hair up for a busy day like that. You can still do that.
Right. The question of whether or not you can put it into braids, right? If you want to have braids in the hair, can you still do that?
Right.
And yeah,
Right.
you should. If it's that long, you should still be able to. If it's here to here length, then it's a little too short to do that kind of stuff.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. A little
I think-
flexibility so that,
Yeah. So I think that we probably want to start with it pretty long if we want this to look short. on
Yes.
her.
That's
if it's
exactly
gonna-
kind of what I'm coming around to.
Yeah. So I would say past waist length to start with, whether it's to the knees or not is up for whatever. But past
Also,
waist.
Thinking in practical levels,
Mhm.
if you're growing out your hair, so say your hair is 8 feet long or whatever, right? And you are cutting it yourself, right?
Yes.
You're not going to cut it yourself here, right? You're going to hold it and cut it, right? I mean, and so it's going to end up being still below shoulder length.
Unless you do the old bring each bunch of hair to your nose and cut it there, which is something folks do.
Right. Possible. But anyway, I'm just thinking in practical terms, right? Wouldn't you?
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't
Right.
cut it yourself that short.
I mean, you can. We might need to trim afterwards. But
I don't think, Alana, that she would need to have longer hair for the dance before Morgoth.
because she has the cloak.
Right.
Right.
Like that's how she's bringing her hair with her
Yeah.
through the journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
From experience, no. But I've known people who have cut their hair that way, Sophia.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I mean, this is also a pre-hairdresser place, or I don't know, maybe Doriath has hairdressers, but
right. But
you
there
would-
definitely won't be one in
some
the
people
in the
community
tree.
will cut someone's hair sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, usually you consider the way you handle longer hair without a hairdresser is you put everything in braids. And so you can put it in a braid and then just chop off the braid too.
Right. But again, you probably wouldn't do the chopping here. You do it here, right?
Probably. I mean, depends. There's no mirrors involved in this. That's true.
No mirrors involved. Yeah. So I'm just that's one of the things that I'm
We can
Then I think
justify
about
it being roughly this long if we needed to be.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, we want it to be.
Just thinking it, just trying to think it through here. I'm also trying to like visually imagine the scene of the hair growing and hair cutting and then the weaving, right? So, yeah. Okay. Back to her clothes. What do elves wear in prison?
Clothes of sadness.
Clothes of sadness. I mean,
it's like a striped prison outfit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm imagining Lúthien in an orange jumpsuit or something. But this is house arrest by her parents. I know it's not actually.
Clearly, what you wear is the white chemise, and then the shadows from the tree put bars of shadow on it. So
exactly.
It
there you go.
like a prison jumpsuit.
That's it.
But actually, it's that white nightgown that all the elves wear in the Rings of Power.
Right. Yeah. But no, I mean, seriously though, this is what she's going to be wearing the whole season, like the whole rest of the season, right? I mean, whatever it is that she wears to prison is what she's going to be running away. She doesn't have a change of clothes for the road.
Right. So that's her traveling clothes.
That's going to be her travel gear. She's
with
not going to be like, Dad, I'm going to wear my traveling leathers to prison. Don't ask. Right? Like it's not going to be like that, right? I mean, it's
whatever she had on that day.
Whatever she had on that, presumably, right?
Yeah. Okay. So so she doesn't wear practical clothing for traveling in the wilderness is where we're going with this. She's wearing a dress.
Now, when she leaves Nargothrond, she might be.
Oh, right. Because
I don't know where she would get it.
Because they dress her up for prison there?
No. What I mean is
she breaks out of prison there too. Lúthien's prison gear is like multi-purpose.
Yeah, but she might get her hands on some more appropriate travel wear on her way out the door, at least.
Yeah,
One could certainly steal some clothing for her.
She rob a clothesline on the way out of Nargothrond or something?
Yeah, sure.
Generally, I think it depends what kind of dance she's doing, but like the dancers I know don't only own ball gowns, like exclusively ball gowns. So that I mean, to the question, what do you wear to prison? I don't wear my full Sunday. Like I wouldn't if I was house arrested.
Is this the voice of experience talking? Or?
Exactly. No, when I go to prison,
No, this is more of a my thought was more if you are like, okay, I'm gonna stay in Old Sunday, right, and not go out and just be comfy. Then
your lounge clothes, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what are Lúthien's lounge clothes, or does she wear lounge clothes? Is she like, I'm gonna sit in a tree all day? I don't know.
I don't think they should be terribly practical because they're not designed for travel for sure. And I love the idea of Huan being her fashion consultant, right? So like, Huan, could you fetch me some, tasteful traveling gear? But I don't think that seems very likely. But sorry, Marie, go on. You were gonna.
Yeah. So there's a couple of times in her travels where she takes off the hair cloak and she's like revealed, right?
Yeah.
And both times that I'm thinking of, it's pretty significant. Like, hi, I'm Lúthien. So with Celegorm seeing her for the first time, when Huan finds her, and then of course, Karkaroth also finds her. So,
and dancing before she's going to dance before Morgoth in this outfit too.
Right.
So her being in essentially a nightgown seems that would certainly stop people in their tracks.
True.
Well, where I'm going with this is the cloak is shadowy, right?
Yeah.
So, and she's in a dark place in both. When she meets Celegorm, it's evening time, and with Karkaroth, it's Angband, and Morgoth's throne room is really Angband. So when the cloak would come off, if she's wearing something light colored underneath, it would really stand out and shine a lot. So I do think we want that contrast of she's covered in shadows, but surprise, it's Lúthien underneath.
Right.
And
you're right that she can't look frumpy. I mean, not that Lúthien would ever look frumpy, but again, like prison clothes, like we're talking about, like, you know, Dad's locking me in the tree.
But she
What do you
doesn't
wear to get locked
change
in a
when she
tree?
gets arrested. So it's more of a whatever she was wearing that day, she gets thrown in a treehouse, and then she gets sent off. So it's like normal clothes.
Hang on, because Dr. Byrne has a suggestion about her being already dressed to depart to help Beren when she is, you know, when Thingol stops her.
Oh.
And I think that is essentially the way we have episode 5 sketched out.
So she's already dressed from the road, and then it's like, no, you're not going on a journey, young lady. You're going straight to prison instead.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay,
go
so
directly to Hero Lorne.
Clothes.
Do not pass go. Do not change into your nightgown.
We just have to remember that she's going to be dancing before Morgoth in whatever it is. Right.
I just wonder if that's a little spoiler for afterwards, and I'm not 100% sure of these designs either because I'm not a textile designer, but I was wondering, can we give her maybe some kind of layers, some kind of situational things that she can carry, and if they're like, okay, next we have to climb over this giant hill with mud and whatever, she can take the pretty white thing off, have something practical, more practical, and then climb up the hill or something. I don't know.
So what you're asking is, can we give Lúthien a backpack to put a change of clothes in?
Well,
would she have been allowed to bring that to prison? I don't know.
Can we have?
But she could get that in Nargothrond. She could pick up a backpack in Nargothrond for sure. So Huon can show up with the cloak and surprise
in a backpack.
Yeah,
Caligorm's backpack.
In a backpack.
Yes, she can steal Caligorm's pack. That would be awesome.
Because people in our world carry gear. Just saying.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not directed at anyone in particular, Nick.
Yeah. Well, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. Right.
The point is, I think we can get her some gear in Nargothrond, and whatever she was wearing to prison is just to get her to Nargothrond, and then from there, if we need something else, we can go. But yeah, I would prefer that she not wear a white nightgown for like 5 episodes straight. It would feel weird.
But I think both the fact that she gets prepared to go thrown in prison and that she has to stop in Nargothrond gives us ample opportunity to give her some variety, some way to adapt to the journey, etc. And I think she shouldn't just. It would look maybe a little weird if we want to balance everything, dancing before Morgoth, you know, showing off her Lúthienness when someone meets her, crawling up the way to Angband, you know, everything one outfit must do with no changes.
Right.
I don't know. Flexibility is good.
Yeah. It's also going to be really funny to have like multiple outfit changes in episode 4 where she's at home in Doriath, and then nope, now you got to wear this for 5
same
episodes.
one. Well, yeah, I mean that would be the way.
She would surely get a change of clothes in Nargothrond, like a few changes of clothes in Nargothrond, and she can possibly bring some of those with her. Saphira, absolutely. I can't imagine that female elves would ever allow fashion to dictate that they cannot have pockets. That seems.
I agree completely.
Like, who would ever let that happen to themselves? I'm just.
Yeah, well, that's also an artifact of the fast fashion complex, which they don't have.
Yes.
Wait, the which complex?
The fast fashion. You know, before fast fashion, women's clothing much more often had diverse amounts of pockets.
That's true. Probably more and larger pockets than men's clothing.
More fabric.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, agreed. Totally. Pockets. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think it's my last Lúthien clothing question. What do you wear when you're going to sing before the god of the dead?
Because that
seems like a day you want to plan your outfit rather carefully, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you just kind of manifest it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like it's
she chooses here.
Yeah. I mean, it would presumably be something that would be manifested by her choice, by her will. It's not literally dressing up, but still, like, presumably we're not going to have her naked spirit dancing and singing before Mandos. So, and Hey, don't make a face, Nick. That's a perfectly logical thing to like. You've got your naked
You
soul
don't
there
take it
before
with you.
Mandos. You don't take your body with you.
I understand, but like I just don't want to be
I'm
that
not
kind of show.
suggesting we actually do a nude dancing scene with Lúthien in that moment. I'm just saying it's not obvious, but yeah. Anyway, just we need to lay it out, right?
To do with the layers where she has the much more darker sort of grief thing, and then
It could change
during the dance. You have these glimpses of the lighting underneath, the hope and the thing, and in the end, she like when it happens, then she can take that off, or we have some kind of change where it's like hope and light, and everything is still there.
Yeah, because the whole point of her song before Namo is to move him to pity.
Yeah.
And he's not an easy guy to plead your case to.
Yeah.
So every aspect of what she's doing there, her song, her dance, her outfit, everything has to be with that goal in mind. And, how do you make this guy cry is basically what it comes down to.
Maybe she's wearing like the simplest, plainest clothes we've seen her in all season. Right?
Because she's like a penitent in that situation. Like, not that she's done anything
not
wrong,
like
but she's
sackcloth,
right.
but yeah, I mean, something very quite severe potentially.
Like what I don't know what you call nun initiates, but something
postulant.
Yeah, thank you.
Novice.
Yes, there you go. Novice is probably the word I was looking for.
Probably.
Like what they would wear essentially as their uniform.
Yeah, something like that seems to me something that
robe,
would fit.
Undyed wool.
Expanding this question a little bit. Sorry, your reference to undyed made me think like, is she going to be in full color anyway? How are we going to depict the appearance of the Fea there?
Good question.
How ghosty?
If only we had this visual art session in which to discuss such questions.
Yeah.
Well, hang on, because we've talked a little bit about this before. There is only one other time that we've been inside the halls of Mandos, and that is with Melkor, and only briefly in episode 8 of season 2, when we kind of showed him, doing push-ups in Mandos, waiting for his parole hearing.
Yeah.
Right. And in that situation, I think that all we really talked about was kind of the black version of the gearing up scene from the Matrix, where they have like just this white space that just goes on infinitely. But in this case, actually, we now have a better analog for this, being Stranger Things, when Seven communicates with somebody telepathically over distance.
Oh, 11, you mean? Yeah, the black
11,
with the
7.
water. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is essentially what we envisioned for Mandos. But I don't think we discussed whether or not it was in color, which is an interesting question.
The only other time that anything inside Mandos has come up since elves have existed is Muriel goes there, of course. And we were going to have her vision of Feanor with flames from when he was born, right?
Right.
So like, she's not in Mandos when that happens, but the vision with the flames, she's then going to spend all her time in Mandos making these tapestries, presumably including flames at some point, because we've had that vision of her with the flames with Feanor.
Yeah.
If we show those tapestries, they should have flames too. So we would definitely want some color for that. Like the tapestries can't be in black and white, is where I'm headed with this.
No,
but I don't think that they're in.
Yeah.
They're not in the interior where the dead people are.
I think actually the main thing we would want to, because it's different to have somebody standing around in their Fea in Mandos compared to like when we had the spirits appearing in episode 1, right, in Middle Earth itself, right? And where we wanted to make the clear distinction between, no, that's a ghosty, spirity thing, as opposed to, you know, a full color person, right? That distinction isn't going to be relevant in Mandos. And so
I think when I think of ghosts in Middle Earth, I almost more think of the Barrow Whites than the and when I always imagine that scene, which is a very beautifully written scene, there you have that the whole Barrows, like North Downs, is it?
The Barrow Downs,
situation where you have Tolkien uses that kind of light over the different hills with fog and the very prominent, you know, westerly horizon,
right.
Or is it east probably in that case, and then you go into the Barrow, and that feeling of that banded light, of that kind of eerie, you can't quite focus, that at least that carries over to me into the Barrow, and Tolkien also uses like banded or sort of unreal light or on not just light of day. There you go, done. Right. So maybe something like that. And in fog, of course, colors tend to be a little bit muted when you're further away, but I wouldn't go full black and white or
right.
Right. So there's lots of ways of doing you're in a different world now type of things with the lighting, and you can do a sepia tone overlay so that everything just is a little, you can like have everything just drenched in color, so everything's just way brighter than it should be, and you can go different directions with it, but something in the visual and the lighting would clue the audience in that this is somewhere different. We are not in like normal circumstances here.
Right.
Yeah, blue would be, of course, the easiest color for, like, you know, the curtain. Everything is sort of
drenched in blue,
a little trist and a little or melancholic. That is, of course, the easiest go-to, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and I would. So we're starting to digress a little bit here, but it's fun. Mandos, wouldn't it be cool if I'm thinking the tapestries should be the only really colorful thing. I think those can be really vibrant because they depict life, the world, right? Everything. And so the people, like everything other than the tapestries could be very muted. I think should be very muted. Nobody's going to be, like festive, right, in appearance in Mandos. But the tapestries themselves could be quite gorgeous, actually. And that contrast, I think, could be interesting. Not that all of them would be.
And on the outside, life is vivid, and you're in there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, and David Michael Roberts in the chat, we had been talking about exactly that kind of thing, having the visual contrast when she casts off her shadowy cloak, that something in her travel clothes underneath should probably be light enough colored that it is shining by comparison. Okay, good. So the last question, what about the disguises? Should we talk about that now, or do you want to save that?
We can save that till we get to the...
Okay, we'll save that till we get there.
Thing.
Okay, because we've got other things to talk about. Like
we do.
I
somehow accidentally trapped you on costumes for too long. Sorry about that.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I know. What a shame that is, isn't it, to spend all this time on costuming, Marie?
These things happen.
These things do happen. Yeah. So props. Finrod's bling. I agree. Finrod's bling is a big deal, isn't it?
In this season, yes.
In this season, it's a huge deal. We need the Nauglamir. Yeah, exactly. We need the Nauglamir, which, of course, needs to be... it doesn't have like a Silmaril-shaped hole in it, right? It's remade for it. But this has to be something that we imagine the Silmaril being attached to and
Yes,
set
the
in.
version of the Nauglamir that I made, or the picture I drew, I didn't make an Nauglamir. Has it's describing things. Basically, is a little bit of a collar going down onto the shoulder situation, and here on the chest down, it has for Finrod, I imagine some kind of encircled by I think had pearls that then went up, but in the middle some sort of Arafinwian sigil, sparkly sort of situation where it's more like maybe a coat of arms for him in a very beautiful sparkly way, and then that has a convenient shape where you could just take that out, put in a Silmarillion.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I did, but there are lots of things that you can do. You just have to, I think, have a shape somewhere where without destroying the whole identity of the piece. You can
Yes. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Planning to upgrade it later is important to the design.
Exactly.
But yeah, the only description that Tolkien gives us that I'm aware of is it is gold, and that it has many jewels of Valinor.
And it's a carcanet or something,
Yeah.
which implies
the collar piece.
I was going to say, this is in the mantle category of words I've never really understood. Carcanet. So what's a carcanet? It's a collar necklace-ish thing?
Implies not just a string that then comes to lie on your chest,
right?
But implies, I think, something going around the neck and maybe further. I don't know. That's because I've Googled this for exactly these reasons, and that's what usually seems to be the.
Okay.
Yeah. And also in the description it says that the necklace isn't heavy, and so it sits very lightly on the person. And if it's gold and a lot of jewels, obviously it is heavy, so it has to be balanced in such a way that it is putting the weight on the shoulder and not just like hanging around your neck. So so some kind of collar type design would be good for it, but it has to be beautiful is the main thing.
It has to be beautiful, and I think heavy, not heavy, can be a relative term.
If it's extensive gold jewelry, it's heavy.
Right. But we're not talking about wrapper chain here. We're talking, it's in terms of heavy, right? It shouldn't look big and clunky. It should look. That's what I'm getting from saying that it's not heavy. Is that it's delicate?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So it's somewhat delicate, and I know we had talked in season 5. Or whenever the last time we talked about this, was that we wanted to give it some kind of star motif, like constellations or something in the pattern of the jewels, so that when you add the Silmaril, it changes it, but it wasn't symmetrical to start with. Right. So it wasn't like it was a symmetrical pattern with a hole in the center and then you just plop the Silmaril in. Like it has to be reworked, but the asymmetrical pattern would make it, you could add the Silmaril and it would change it without destroying it.
Also, if it looks in some sense like a field of stars, and then the Silmaril in it would look like Venus among the stars, which is kind of awesome. Yeah.
That would be a foreshadowing. Yes.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool.
So someone totally designed that for us.
Yeah. Would love to see. Would love to see that.
The Nauglamir quickly and put it behind my background.
Pop it up.
Maybe I'll save it for the session.
Yeah, we'll find it right now. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. But no, that would be good. And there's a crown, right? Because he's got to have a crown to chuck down. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's a silver crown? Okay.
Again, according to the text, that's what we get.
According to the text, he's got a silver crown. What?
Probably doesn't have any jewels on it. Because Nargothrond is built post ban, right?
Yeah.
Well, but also he brought the most jewels, and I don't.
Yeah, but he didn't mean he wore them all the time.
He saved him. He saved him.
Right, which is why the Naglamir has so many jewels in it, because he's got this pile of jewels with nothing better to do, and he's like, please use these.
Right.
So yeah, the crown could be simple without jewels if we wanted it to be.
Does anybody have a sense of what the crown should look like? I find myself resistant to the typical like ye old elf crown that looks like branches or leaves or something, right? I'm thinking not a leafy crown.
And it just kind of sits on the, like, hugs the head, essentially.
Yeah, also Nargothrond is, by all, it's stated in the text that it's like this fusion of Sindar and Dwarven and Elven cultures, and it's in that kind unique in Beleriand, at least in the part of Beleriand that we're often present. And I would love to have that represented, where you can see that everything that's made in Nargothrond is a little bit more fusion in style than in Doriath or in Hithlum or what.
Yeah, but he's definitely not a woodland king. So I mean, it would not have a woodland motif, I would not think.
I mean, he's an Noldor also. I've always imagined like the Noldor versus the Sindar to be a little stylistically different. They've been apart very long, so like roughly Art Nouveau for the woodland people and Art Deco for the Noldor, like related but different, right?
Yeah.
Stylistically, like that's just an example. You could have two styles that have similar things, but definitely recognizably different.
Do we think? But we're thinking less rather than more, like not big crown.
I mean, I guess the first thing to ask is it more than a circlet?
Right. That's exactly my question.
I mean, a circlet doesn't just have to be a straight band across. It could have designs to it, or whatever. But a circlet is not quite a crown.
Right. I'm kind of thinking more than a circlet.
So more than a circlet. So okay, so now we've got a whole structure of some sort.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do intertwining branches or leaves or anything like that, because it's not woodland.
Not a woodland king.
Yes, but so it would have to have some kind of motif, even if it's just a geometric pattern. Symmetry probably would be a good thing.
He's the
only motif Tolkien gives us for Arafinve is snakes. So if you want to have two snakes coming up, but
could be a snaky crown. I mean, that would start looking all Egyptian pretty quickly.
Yeah,
which
and that was my next question with crowns is: do you want it to be higher in the front or higher in the back?
Ooh. A lot of elvish crowns are bigger in the front than they are in the back. It would be kind of cool. Well, although wait, hang on. What's his face? Thranduil's
Thranduil's I think is
in the Hobbit is bigger in the back than in the front.
Yeah, and that's Egyptian as well. Going back up, and then you have like a thing here. That's
Any chance that the concept of him being Lord of Caves could be worked into his crown in some sense?
I've been thinking about that.
I mean, I don't know exactly how you do like the stalagmite crown, which would look, not great necessarily, but not made of actual stalagmites, mind. But if Lord of Caves is his title, right? So I mean,
well, I was actually thinking of like silver horizontal diamond shape surrounding it on onyx. So essentially it shows, and it could be like he could have like three big ones of those in the front, denoting three entrances to Nargothrond. I mean, it's relatively abstract, but I think it would.
Yeah, it doesn't have
at
to
least
be.
Suggest
it doesn't have to be very literal. Anyway, I'm just. This is me throwing out random ideas. Not even ideas. Just concepts.
I think basically. There is a place where people can let their imaginations run pretty loose, and then this would be a place where we go like, concept artists, please give me 5, 10, whatever designs, and we'll see if anything.
Right.
Yeah, but we don't have the luxury, of course. But yeah,
it would be
Right.
But it would be
Yeah,
cool
that's
to
only
get a
when
bunch
you're-
of submissions and then see
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if we have the question is, if you have the ring of Barahir, is this like is this sort of a suite of jewelry that Finrod has made for him with the crown that sort of matches stylistically, or are these things that are made over like centuries and like all
I
all
think my vote is for the latter, and that's one of the reasons why I was thinking. I think that they capture different things, right? The Nauglamir is designed to capture jewels of Valinor, right? It's all about the jewels of Valinor. The ring is his personal, like this is like his crest, right?
It's from his father.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a more personal house crest situation. His crown, that's why I was thinking the crown could be in some way conceptually connected with the Lord of Caves, right? I mean, it would have been made for him after he established himself in Nargothrond, presumably, right? So now here we are in Nargothrond. I'm the Lord of Caves. Let's commission a Lord of Caves crown, right? And that would have been, the thing that they would have made. I like the idea, Katrin, of that kind of like stylistic fusion. It would not just be a pure Noldor thing. That would be interesting. But yeah, no, I think I don't think they're a matched set. I mean, they can't look horrible together, right? But they would, not that they're ever all three together. He's already lost the Ring of Barahir before he makes given away the Ring of Barahir before he makes the Nauglamir in our version of the story, right? Pretty sure that's true. So we'll never actually see Finrod in all three.
Season 6, episode 1, and the Ring of Barahir is given away in season 5, episode 13.
That's what I thought. So, but in any case, certainly the crown and the Nauglamir have to not look ridiculous together.
And since the crown is silver and the Nauglamir is gold, this is a challenge to make them look like they go together.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Now, the Ring of Barahir. We've talked about this before, but we're just going to repeat our challenge that we don't think the Ring of Barahir has ever been depicted like as it's described, basically. Though I find the one in the Lord of the Rings film, frankly, disappointing. This is the description in the book: the shape of two serpents with emerald eyes, one devouring and the other supporting a crown of golden flowers. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the Ring of Barahir because we already talked about this in season 5 when we were discussing it before. But I just want to reiterate our challenge. We would love to see, there is room for a better Ring of Barahir, which better captures what Tolkien is describing here. And I would love to see some good versions of that. Now, other famous props. Baron's equipment: the bow of Bregor and the sword Dagmor, which he will lose in Nandon Gortheb. So he's not going to have his sword when he's going to have his sword very briefly, right? Like in episode 2, right? Well, he will have had it
through episode 3. Yes. Mm-hmm. So from episode 12 of season 5 to episode 3 of season 6, there's a lot of stuff that happens that suggests he does not have a sword,
right?
In the course of his journey, at least after he leaves Tol Sirion. Tol and Garhalth at the time, I guess, which of course that he would lose a sword at that point makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see any reason to hang on to it for another 2-3 episodes, and it gives us a sense of loss leaving Nandon-Gortheb. Or like a sense that something has happened.
Right.
Just like Lúthien chopping her hair off and going out into the world is going to signal that. For Beren to lose his sword right before he enters Doriath, he's leaving the life of the outlaw behind.
Right.
And also it's in a way very in a vulnerable position where he's like, I'm just at this point basically trusting that I'm not running into another monster.
Yeah.
Right. He has a bow, but he doesn't have a primary melee weapon.
And probably
again.
not any arrows to speak
Right.
of.
Right. Right. He has a bow. He'd presumably, well, I was going to say, presumably he could get some in Nargothrond, but then they're going to be in disguise, right? So.
Right. They're traveling as orcs for a time. So.
Yeah.
And whatever they have is going to be taken away from them at Tongarhath, as Nick pointed out. So.
Yeah.
He can temporarily get some things. He's obviously going to get Angrist after that. And he's going to have a weapon on him when they do the hunt for the wolf. So something from Doriath for that. Later on in life, he's going to have to attack some dwarves. So he'll get restocked on weapons as necessary.
Down the road. But for most of the season, he's not going to be carrying around a sword, right?
Right. Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to get Angrist, of course.
Yeah.
Did we talk about Angrist? What it should look like? I know we forged Angrist earlier on.
Yeah, I don't think we kind of talked it through with any level. I actually would like Angrist to be like a rondel dagger, which its status as a pry bar suggests a rather sturdy construction. I mean, sure, magic and whatnot, but a rondel dagger makes perfect sense for that. It's fantastic for punching through armor. And so yeah.
And we have to think of the purpose for which it was intended. It was a gift. Well, it was an extortion from the dwarves, right?
It came with a little bit of a warning.
Right. I remember. I don't remember what we said about Angus, but I remember it came up.
So Telkar gives it as the first toll of Caranthir's toll road, right at Keep Hellborn, and the statement that is given with the knife is something like that it will serve you until you reach for something that's not yours, kind of thing, or it was something along those lines of it. Don't be too greedy.
Right.
Here, have this knife. And Caranthir is like, that sounded ominous. Here, Curfin, you take the knife.
You must take it.
Right.
Yeah. Not quite like that. But yeah, he does. He gets rid of it. So that's how Curfin ends up with Angrist in Silmfilm. And we're going to have Angrist obviously snap when Beren reaches for the second Silmaril. So the initial warning will pay off at the end. Right.
Yeah, we were setting that up all along. Okay, so he's as Arnorian is asking, Beren is going to go to invade Angband without a primary weapon. Yes. I mean, he could conceivably find something maybe in the. I mean, he's going to recover his bow. He could get some weapon from
the orcs, so they can take whatever the orcs have.
Yeah, the part of the issue here is keep in mind he is a wolf
costume
for most of that journey, and it's really hard for a wolf to be carrying around a bunch of weapons.
Yep.
So he's somehow going to have Angrist at the end of that. So like, I don't know, when you turn into a wolf, I guess you keep whatever's on you. But
does he have to? He has his bow, which he has to keep.
Not at that point. He doesn't.
Not at that point.
Yeah, he loses the bow by the time he gets to Tongarth.
Established Lúthien's backpack.
We have. So Lúthien can carry things in the backpack, but probably not a giant sword.
Not a giant sword, but
that's what I'm saying. It's like we've got a bit of an issue with the Thuringwethel Dragluan disguises. It's not like bows or swords look like they fit with this. Not saying. I mean, it's all magic, so you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Also, the sword need not be giant. Just saying.
Right. Well, Angrist is a tiny sword.
Right. He has one very small sword already.
So it is curious what their plan was, right? Like, I'm going to take on the greatest fortress in the world with a knife.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, that makes no sense. On the other hand, why not? I mean, you might as well. Like, it's not like a sword is going, oh, well, but now I have a sword, so now our odds are much better than they were.
Yeah,
I
no.
mean, you're not going to get in and out by fighting, no matter what your weapon is. So
I think that's the obvious conclusion here is that he could grab something in Angband on the way out. Because the fact that he tries to confront Karkaroth with the Silmaril rather than with a weapon suggests that maybe he doesn't have a weapon. Go away is not the move of somebody who has a perfectly good sword.
Right. Although potentially that could look just as hopeless for a weapon situation as well.
Yeah. I personally would not want to confront Karkaroth even if I had a sword.
Sam has a dagger and the light, right? And he does the two-handed.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty much the same as if Beren has a thing to hit and the thing to protect.
Yes.
Like,
I think that's a reference. I mean, I think that Sam Gamgee presenting the Fire of Galadriel to Shelob is meant to recall Beren presenting the Silmaril to.
So I think a two-handed approach there is perfectly reasonable, and
the last thing he does with two hands.
That's right. We might as well give him a two-handed approach, as it is his last chance. That isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. So he can grab something on his way out, and I know that somebody wanted to keep that reference to Beren having the kitchen knife from Tvildo's kitchens in Angband, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they wanted a kitchen knife, but it was can he please like grab something when they're running through Angband in reference to
grabbing the kitchen knife. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. I'm always down for like a weird Tale of Tinuviel callback. Yeah.
So I know there was a request
like
that we
fire pit. They have something roasting there and just grabs the skewer.
The carving knife. Yeah.
Or just like a big cleaver.
Right.
Like, because we've established that Morgoth feeds Karkaroth from his hand in passing by a haunch of meat there in the throne room, and so
he does feed him with his own hand. It's true.
That would be pretty. Like, I'm cutting you down with the thing that the boss uses to give you your food.
Oh, I don't think that Morgoth is personally like slicing the meat. I'm just.
Well, or your servants are, the extension of Morgoth is
that if the tool is associated with feeding Karkaroth, then maybe don't come at Karkaroth because then he just bites your hand off.
Well, but then again, maybe if you're Beren and under that situation, you don't think that through totally, right? You might not even know that particular haunch of meat is intended for Karkaroth.
Yes.
Yeah. But I love the Tale of Tinuviel reference. We can totally do that. We talked about Dairon's instrument, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to be playing some kind of flute or recorder-ish thing.
Yeah, something.
Okay, that'll
be something that's a pipe. My vote was for not a bagpipe.
Yeah.
And past that, I don't have a preference.
Yeah. And then we talked a little bit about Lúthien's spindle and loom in the treehouse, right? That those were going to be more sort of native to the tree.
The loom, she was going to construct a loom out of tree branches or some such, and then the spindle would be the one tool she has with her to do her thing.
Right. Yeah, this will obviously visually be a challenge. I think it can be ameliorated if during that scene you're not showing a lot of masters where the whole thing is shown and people can go is that how a loom works? And we have more focus on maybe pulling a strand of hair somewhere down, attaching it. You can see the hands, you can see light going through the strings of hair, where you get with all the manga does this very much, in comparison to Western comic, where they don't do a lot of overview shots and they give you a lot of little pieces through a whole page and your mind just puzzles together what's happening. organically and fills in everything in between, and I think that would be good.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, my grandmother has a big loom, so I could visit her. I could visit her anyway.
Right.
You know,
I
Cool.
take a few photo references.
Visit your
and-
grandma.
That's it.
You visit your grandmother anyway.
Anyway, I'm saying, but
Yeah.
I usually don't. I'm not usually not like grandma. Can I also see the loom? Because
There you go.
you see
Yeah.
it a lot as a kid.
I'm very happy to see you, grandmother, but would you mind kindly moving out of the way so I can play around with your loom
That's
for a
right.
little while?
I'm here to take pictures, not of you, but of
I'm
the
here
loom.
to
Yeah.
go to the basement to see the loom.
Yes. Yes. Well, I want to, before we move on, I want to address that there's been some discussion and debate. Arnorian is asking about basically, but I think it's important because it's going to matter for later. What's going to happen to Morgoth's crown? The Silmarils are set on the front. Is he going to be cutting through the steel of the crown, the iron of the crown? In other words, like Morgoth post Beren and Luthien, is Morgoth's crown going to look the same but with one Silmaril popped out, or is it going to have part of it sliced off? With the description of Angrist that can cut steel as if it's wood, it open the possibility that you can actually which would mean then that Beren would be holding not just a gem in his hand, but like piece iron crown with his Silmaril set in it still, right, in his hand at that point.
I think it depends how the Silmaril is set in. Like, is it stuck?
Did we ever
entirely?
show that? The Iron
We don't
Crown?
have a visual for our show.
Yeah.
But or are there prongs that are holding it into? Because if there's prongs, you just need to pry off the prongs, and then the gem falls out. So presumably, you could cut through the prongs.
How I've imagined it, at least.
Iron is pretty ductile. With even a regular steel blade, you could probably do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But again,
now, granted, it's Morgoth's crown.
It's Morgoth's crown, and it's Angrist. Like, we don't want to underplay Angrist. Like, it's a big deal. It's supposed to be a big deal.
Showing it cutting in a way that is surprising is probably a good plan here.
That is unusual. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like, it's the sense always has been like this dagger, which has this capacity to cut, this extraordinary dagger, which has the ability to cut steel, is given to Beren, like, to be the perfect tool for the job that he has to do, which is to cut the Silmaril out of the. So I actually wouldn't want Beren to acquire the gem in a way that you could do with any old dagger.
Right.
Right.
So what if what he does is, whether it's channel set or prong set, he jams the dagger in underneath the jewel and rotates it so that it does both, right? It both pries and cuts through the metal this way, because like I can't imagine seeing him trying to cut through the iron itself, like the side of the crown to get at the jewel. Like, that just doesn't seem like the best way to do it. Why would anybody
unless you had Angrist? If you had Angrist,
why would anybody even think to do that first?
He would discover this about the night. We wouldn't have to show him being like, hey, wow, this dagger has the ability to cut metal in a way that's quite unusual for daggers. But he could easily have discovered that, so that he knows what he's carrying when he gets to the throne, by the time he gets to the throne room.
Right.
And is like,
I agree that he can know what his knife does, but I also think that you want to show someone prying the jewel out, not like hacking the crown up. Like, the goal isn't to break the crown.
Like a little can openery in the way that Nick described, where it goes around and it actually cuts whatever is holding it in off a little. But I think also to have the suspense factor, like if I'm imagining Beren hunched there over Morgoth, like I would imagine someone who's trying to make the least amount of noise possible and the least amount of physical alteration possible, and is really trying to surgically peel the little bit of metal that's holding the Silmaril. Maybe it's like a bit of metal overlapping, not just prongs, and all that bit of metal can be like shaved off or something.
Right.
Yeah, well,
And
that's
it
why I
is true
say
that
if
the
you
second
put it,
time the knife has to break. So there
Right.
does have to be some kind of tension on the knife that would lead it to
Right.
break.
right. So that's why I'm saying, like, having him jam the knife in behind the jewel and rotating in that leverage both cuts through the iron, but also pries the jewel free. And then when he tries it the second time, it snaps.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That works. So here's another little artistic challenge then. I would love to see before and after shots of Morgoth's crown. Love to see that. And we can decide whether or not, I mean, again, I leave this to the discretion of the visual artist. Like, what does Morgoth do with his crown afterwards? Does he fix it? Does he, I mean, I think it's going to be obvious that the third Silmaril used to be there and isn't there anymore. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Morgoth leaves a raggedy hole or something, But anyway, I'd love to see a before and after shot of the Iron Crown.
Yeah, I think we had said that the Iron Crown was the last thing we saw Morgoth make. Is that true? Because he
physically make, yes.
Yeah, because he's going to just corrupt things that exist from here on out, was the idea.
Yes. Yeah.
But then he has to like invent dragons. So I was like, I wasn't sure if that was actually the last thing he did, but we were going to try to make that be the last.
Yeah.
Crafting thing.
Certainly the last thing we suggest or, to show
him
quasi-show.
Yeah. Meaning we didn't have him make Grond. We had Sauron make Grond and give it to him. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if so, leaving the crown jagged or broken and not fixed would maybe be a sign of Morgoth's decline.
Yeah.
That he's not making things anymore. It's not like he makes himself a new crown for the Silmarils.
Exactly. No, he definitely doesn't make himself a new crown. And I think it's, that would be cool. And which Silmaril is it that Beren pries out? I think it's a side crown. I think it's a side one.
Yeah. Why would anybody go for the middle one first?
And not only that, but again, I'm thinking about the after picture. I want Morgoth to look lopsided afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Right, because if he still had two with a jagged,
first of all, then he's going to look like he's got headlights, which is going to be weird enough, right? But, it would. But I mean, it should. I mean, the asymmetry would show like.
Yeah,
it's screwed up.
He's already limping, so it could be.
Yes, exactly. It'd be like a visual limp. Yeah. Which side, left or right?
Which side is his bad foot?
Yeah. Which side is his bad foot?
It's like then you could start having also shooting Morgoth from two different sides, either the dark profile and the light profile, where it's like.
I don't know if the text states this, but mechanically it would almost certainly have to be his left foot that's injured, unless he's left-handed, because that would be the foot most naturally to place upon the neck of somebody you were about to hit with a giant
with your right hand
mace.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely right. Yep. Yeah, so it's probably his left foot. If Beren's right-handed, it would probably go for the right-hand one facing out. So it'd be Morgoth's left-hand Silmaril that would be gone. If we're thinking convenience for Beren, it would be that, right?
Well, that depends probably how Morgoth is lying down.
He would probably go down on his bad side first, which would mean that
he'd be
his
lying
left
on his
side. So
side.
the right.
Is his crown on or off? Does the crown come off? I think the crown comes off.
Yeah, the crown comes off.
Like Beren's holding the
so
crown.
Then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because what wakes him is when the knife snaps. The tip.
The shard of the knife.
So the crown, because it basically says he kind of like collapses like a mountain, like a landslide, right?
He slumps down to the ground.
He's just going down. So when he does it's the weight of the crown that's pulling him down. So the crown comes off when he comes down.
With a really loud. It does not make a tinkling sound when it hits the. I mean, it would be a loud clank.
Iron on stone.
So when we do the special effect, we got to do what they did for the ring in Lord of the Rings.
Exactly,
put like a magnet in it. So
boom. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We want a louder than should be sound when the crown of Morgoth hits the ground. Okay. So yeah, Katrin, I like the idea of having him like the no Silmaril on his left side matching his limp on his left leg as well. That's kind of fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like he's tried to keep up this facade as the glorious king of Middle Earth and Beleriand and everything, and now at least one of the sides, he's still trying, but it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, that's cool. Okay, so we don't have much time to talk about locations, but let's think about. Let's just think about a few things here. We talked about the Halls of Mandos. Hey, good. We did that one already. Here, Lorne. We kind of talked about that before, right? We've got the beech tree with 3 bowls and kind of coming up and making a cage itself, and that's where she's going to be, right? So she's not going to be literally in a tree house. And so I think we.
Sorry, Ted.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. It's okay. We've got the we've got the pot of evil. I think we've got that envisioned pretty clearly. What are Finrod and Beren's digs like? What are the dungeons in Tulsirion like?
I'm so glad you asked. We spent a lot of time figuring that out.
Good. I imagine. Because it's not like Sauron designed them.
Right. And how that scene looks is kind of important to like how that setting looks is how kind of important. So, okay, Marie, you're probably gonna have to help me out because my memory on this is a little spotty. So essentially you walk into what was probably some sort of grain storage or something like that. And you're walking on this walkway, and to your left and right, there would be these chambers that go down, and they are deep enough that you can't jump out without the assistance of a ladder.
So these are pits in the floor.
Yes. So we basically put a bunch of oubliettes into Tulsirion. They weren't originally meant to be oubliettes. They were just for storing grain. Yes, right. They were for storing grain or something. But now they're oubliettes.
Okay. Yeah. So werewolf is jumping into the pit?
Right. So the idea was we wanted some way for the werewolves to attack without having the orc standing there opening the gate to let the werewolf in kind of dynamic. We wanted the werewolves to be able to jump and attack and surprise without.
And the like burning eyes of the werewolf, like the werewolf peeking up over, coming up over the edge of the, like, would be scary.
Right. So that werewolf is just there and there's nothing between the prisoners and the werewolf. That was the idea, is to remove the bars and get rid of any kind of barrier. And so the werewolf just jumps into the pit, and now you're in an oubliette with a werewolf. So good luck.
Also, that sense of like the thing above you having that kind of tactical advantage over you is more scary. Like you feel more vulnerable.
Yeah, like, when Shelob is overhead and Frodo's below and doesn't know she's there. That's the most terrifying part of the whole Shelob sequence.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like that.
Exactly. Just like that. Right. No, that makes perfect sense. I like that. I like that a lot. And so are Finrod and Beren in the same oubliette?
Right. We're going to put them in the same one. Now, they're not going to start out that way, but Thurin Gwethel's going to figure out who Beren is based on the Ring of Barahir. And once she knows who it is, she's like, oh, I've got unfinished business with this person from Dorthonion. So then he gets rehoused with Finrod, and the rest of the oubliettes get picked off one at a time.
No, that's cool. So I just realized another thing that's really kind of awesome, actually. If some of the other elves are in other oubliettes, you'd just hear the screaming and you wouldn't be able to see at all what happened. Yeah,
exactly. So we can have it in darkness. We can have this, terror from above. There's no barrier between you and the scary thing. There's a lot you can work with in that setting. So we tried really hard to make the setting work for the scenes because we
like that a lot.
we ran into a lot. Like every time we would try to describe what the place looked like, we ran into issues of one sort of another. Like, if there's doors, what is this werewolf opening the door? That's going to look a little weird.
Yeah.
And it also slows down the approach, right? And so
yeah, agreed. Are they chained to the wall of the oubliette?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're manacled to the wall. Okay. It's because that's what Finrod is going to burst his bonds, and that's
right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right. And so that also kind of answers the question of why did Finrod break his chains to save Beren and didn't do that for any of the other guys who were getting killed? And we've explained it as they're in a pit.
They don't even have a chance
to
until it's too
them.
late. They can't see. Yeah.
Right. You hear the guy screaming and he's already dead. Whereas with the wolf that comes for Beren, Finrod can react. So hopefully it's slightly more understandable to the audience why Finrod is doing what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's a great solution. I think that's very clever. I liked it a lot. And it also, of course, it fits the other criterion, which is it has to work as an elvish construction. Like there can't just be like a cunningly sadistic dungeon built into to this tower, because there wouldn't be. Now he's had some chance to redecorate, of course, but
he's been busy though.
He's been busy.
To that point, how does the throne room look under Sauron? Because it's going to be relatively present in the season, and also the canvas for the song battle, right? So we have also discussed a little bit how the song battle might look, but not yet extensively. And there's like a little bit of to and fro of how much are these visions that are conjured up, how much are they I personally would think it would be nice if you could still feel the throne room.
Right.
In a way.
Right. Sorry, I'm laughing at Dennis's suggestion that the prison door could have had a little doggy flap to let the werewolves in. So,
also another valid solution to the problem. Definitely.
Perhaps a little bit less viscerally scary.
Right. It might not have done everything we wanted in the scene, but technically it works. Yes. Agreed.
Right.
So our desire was essentially to create a chase sequence through the song battle to make it more dynamic, so that Finrod's not essentially really just standing across from Sauron in the throne room. We were really trying to avoid that scenario, as we discussed when we
talked about this a good bit in the magic thing. Absolutely. But my biggest question, which again, as Katrin was saying in the sort of our transition, because Katrin, you brought this up when we were talking about Sauron's opportunity for redecorating, right? How much is he going to have redecorated? How will Sauron have redecorated the throne room? Is he going to redo it? Does he not care? Is he going to redo it and how would he redo it? Tell me about Sauron's interior decorating choices, right? When he says like, I want to give this, this tower is my new stronghold. It needs a new look. What kind of look does he give it, generally speaking?
I mean, the whole problem is, of course, that Lúthien, who is a very weird rebranding for Sauron, all things considered. Like
it is.
He has werewolves in every corner. Suddenly there are bats flying around.
Rebranding is exactly what's going. He's branding himself for the first time, and as Senalicia points out, the fact that he steals all the black horses from Rohan shows that he absolutely cares about stylistic motifs. Right?
Third age Sauron.
Right, so exactly. So, exactly. The point is that
the guy has an aesthetic.
The guy has an aesthetic and he sticks with it, right? His aesthetic might have changed for sure. But this is the first time he's branding himself, right? Ever.
Yeah, this is Lord Thu.
I mean, he also likes Cirith Ungol in green entirely, apparently, or is that just a movie? Is there
no? There's a weird,
there's a reference, right?
Pale glow in Minas Margul.
Yeah, he likes mood lighting.
Right, right. Well, and he's got he's doing the Thu the Necromancer thing. So is he going to go like, I'm going full necromancer here? Like I'm gonna, that's my theme. My theme is like, you know, some people, you know, have lots of like, you know, little owls or whatever. Other people choose turtles, right? And he's like, no, I'm going for the death theme, right? I want skulls,
Werewolves,
full goth
vampires.
Sauron, right?
Yeah, full goth Sauron. Yeah, let's say this is the goth stage for Sauron and
Yeah.
the necromancer.
Yeah.
And he
Don't
just
tell anyone about my goth phase. Yeah.
Everybody has a goth phase, and Sauron is obviously it, right? I mean, if Sauron has a goth phase, this is totally it. But I don't think he should just be like, I'm going for the black, dark, evil lord. Like, not necessarily, right? I mean, because remember, like, through the necromancer means to him something different than it, you know, it's not just a, you know, goth skulls and black makeup kind of deal, right? Necessarily.
No. And that's where we get to ease into things with Sauron. But in the light of Lúthien, he's not easing into it. He's pretty comfortable in who he is in that story. So the question is, how much of that do we retain and capture, or how much of it do we make him feel awkward and uncomfortable and not quite filling the shoes that he's trying to fill? Like, where do we put him on that? And you can keep the exact same dialogue. The question is, how sincere is the guy saying the dialogue? Does he believe it about himself? Do other people believe it about him? Like, at what level is this? Like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
I think when he, in the Third Age in Mirkwood, has his little necromancer undercover thing, it should absolutely invoke Thu. Like, he's basically just taking the old decorations out of the closet, putting them up in
yeah
dusting them off. So, he would be, though I think we should be able to tell there's a difference, right? By the time he gets to the Third Age, he's in a different place.
Right. The whole Goldor situation is a different situation, but he's a different person. He's much further along this path. And so here I feel like he should come across as play acting a little bit here. He's dressing up as a necromancer here.
He is.
I mean, he's dabbling in necromancy too, but he's dressing up for the part of, I'm an evil dark lord. And
without
are you, though?
Halloween party.
Yeah, this is the Halloween version of
and
what he will later become.
As Arnorian says, he's in Dol Guldur, he's through part 2, right? Which sounds like an episode title to me. But anyway, just saying. But also, as Arnorian was asking, he's still beautiful, right? I mean,
he looks however he wants to look.
He looks however he wants to look, but he certainly can look beautiful.
He could, but like goth beautiful.
Right. Hot goth is what we're talking about here.
I almost imagine something like in book Dracula, of course book Dracula is older, but this kind of almost kind of aristocrat but weird feeling that you get in book Dracula when Jonathan stays at it's like kind of weird. It's very you know what I mean? That kind of, not obviously hello, I'm Dracula with the red cape, but invoking kind of that menace, but in a very fancy way, you know.
Fancy menace.
Agreed.
I think that's where Sauron is at this point in his life.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Sauron should be
right, and menace not because he's like, I'm evil, that's who I am, right? But because he's saying, what is he trying to say with his look? He's trying to say, I am to be taken seriously, right? Yes. I am powerful. I am powerful because the necromancy is all about power. Like, he's found a power source, right?
And we've shown him to be the underdog in the struggles against Gothmog to a point. He's won a lot of their recent conflicts. So he's no longer,
but still in a very underdoggy way. Yeah,
he was an underdog. He was an underdog, but he kept winning. He kept showing up Gothmog. He's like, I'm better than the Balrogs. I'm smarter than the Balrogs. So now he's got his own place, and he's like, look at me. I'm the guy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
he's not trying to be evil Dark Lord, but he is trying to be like, take me seriously.
Right. I am setting myself up to be a power, to use a Treebeard phrase, right? Yeah. And also wolf motifs, right? He is, as somebody, Dennis, was reminding us, Lord of Werewolves is still one of his main things there.
This is the Isle of Werewolves, yeah.
This is the Isle of Werewolves. He's the Lord of the Isle of Werewolves. So he's got. So we're going for death. We're going for power. We're going for wolf motif. Also worked into that. Love me, but take me seriously, but also maybe love me, right, and admire me. I'm trying to, like, what does his look say? Is what I'm trying to figure, right? And I think that
all sounds all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So somebody have fun with some interior decorating
decorating and costuming, right? I mean, when they are brought before him, like, what's he look like, right?
True.
You know,
Through the necromancer needs an outfit.
Yeah, we need the new Thu here. So, yeah, awesome, cool. Okay, yeah, boy, it's getting late, but that's good. But
Not yet.
I don't think there are other major. I think those are the major locations. We do have some things that we did establish before: Tarnailuin, Tolsirian. Yeah, good. We already talked about what does it look like when transformed into Tol and Garahoth. We got that.
Nandon Gorthep would also be nice.
Nandon Gortheb, yeah, we
talked a lot about the visualization before, I think.
Yeah, we've gotten some of that. We haven't done Ered Gorgoroth, so some sense of, like, spider-infested Ered Gorgoroth as well as Nandon Gortheb itself. But yeah. So Marie, you have some suggestions of things we'd like to see. Something like Million's Grotto, the heart of her magic and where the girdle originates. That would be really nice to see. Yeah.
And we've seen it before, but I don't think anybody's ever
seen it. Yeah, we've set scenes there, but visual art, I haven't seen it yet.
Right. It would be nice to see. So yes. More invitations. I won't say challenges because that makes it sound like I'm daring people or whatever, but invitations to visual artists. Would love to see your ideas about the inside of Menegroth and especially about Mellion's Grotto and Nargothrond. More about what Nargothrond looks like on the inside and Finrod's throne room. What does Morgoth's throne room look like? We haven't really depicted that either, and we should. So that's another thing I'd really love to visualize. What does Thingol's throne room look like? I was already making an assumption when I was talking about walking down an aisle, right? Which I do imagine. I guess, like, that betrays the fact that in my own imagination, it's like this vaulty, echoey cavern that they're walking down surrounded by people. And it's a long walk, right? So you see Thingol a long ways away. And he's so tall you can see him really far away anyway, right? But then you've got to because I've always kind of in my own imagination heaped up the sort of the dread and the time of, like, people staring at you and, like, coming before you can't just, like, come around the corner and there you are standing in front of Thingol, right? I mean, it's got to be like a gradual approach up to at least. That's how that scene always really struck me, right? But maybe somebody has a different mental picture of that and wants to show us that. I mean, Katrin, as you suggested before, what we would love is the equivalent of being able to get a whole bunch of concept art from people. You know, if we had, the actual infinite budget that we pretend we have for this, what we'd have is a crew of, 100 artists drawing concept art pictures all the time, and we would be choosing from among them. That's exactly the kind of thing we would love to do at our next, our season ending. It won't be the very end of the season necessarily, but at the thing we'll do towards the end of the season when we come back to the art. Would love to see concept art, costume art, location art, prop art in various different media. It would be really cool. So
yeah, that's, I mean, the thing is, this is of course the most decentralized and individual thing. So I think we've had big variations in all the seasons of what came back, how much came back from where, and what topics. And I think that in a way was probably the thing that's going to stay most decentralized from all the departments. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome. So we have, other scenes of interest. Oh yeah. Storyboarding. Oh man, that would be cool to get more storyboarding of some important scenes. Especially ones that we spend a lot of time talking about when we're doing those episodes. That would be really, really cool.
Yeah. Even if it was basically just basic storyboarding, like not shot for shot, just even if it was just scene for scene.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, a storyboard can be everything from like 4 pictures depicting a shot that you think is particularly cool or meaningful, to like a full scene, or like, as Nick said, also like 3 scenes that come after each other and how those play into each other. It can be very different in pacing.
Right. And storyboards also don't have to be like, each square doesn't have to be elaborately drawn, right? I mean, a full scene storyboard with essentially stick figures can be really evocative and fascinating to look at and think about. So, that would be cool. Anyway, yeah, all of that stuff would be great to have. I know we have a few examples, Katrin, of some of your stuff that we can look through. So you were thinking about some Lúthien stuff. We didn't talk about Lúthien's hair cloak and what it should look like. How did we not talk about that with as long as we spent talking about Lúthien's costuming? But yeah, you've got some different ideas of different kinds of garments that she would wear and themes and ideas.
Yeah, I mean, for the first one, the first thing, this was mostly the hair, where I imagined that you could have a lot of contrast between her like properly or nicely done up styles, the open hair cloak, the short hair for the travels, maybe whatever she has at the end of the season, like that display a full range of states she's in and environments she's adapting to.
Right.
Yeah. And similarly with the clothing, I mean, there's also a big range of of things that could be done. Like there's no one thing. I personally love patterns. I love different shapes interacting with each other in clothing. I love layers. So I tried different things. So there's not essentially just one silhouette governing the the clothes, but I mean, with clothes there's always a million things you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
I see Marie nodding and smiling happily in response to that observation. Yes, there are a million things. Absolutely. Now, the bat fell is a really interesting. We didn't talk much about that. We've talked about that before in the magic discussion and everything.
And in the context of Thorngwethel wearing it too.
Thorngwethel, we've talked about it. Yeah.
There I just did want to observe that it is not un-Tolkienian. Some visual things are quite weird. Like, we have generally observed that Tolkien is sparish with, how do you say? He uses them sparsely, the visuals.
Yeah.
So, like, doesn't just throw visuals on screen on the page and you're like processing all of that, but he more evokes images. But sometimes he starts to give you images like Tom Bombadil or like the Tevildo's kitchen or whatever, even though that's not canon strictly, whatever canon is. But he has that tendency where he gives you very fairy tale like imagery, and I think it's hard to bridge that gap. But I think it would be cool if in Silmarillion from time to time there is some kind of magic where it goes, oh wow, I didn't know this was in the world, but it's very very cool. And bridging that gap is of course hard.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. That's very cool. I agree. There's a lot of, and this actually, so this question, how visually weird does film want to be? I think is a great question that I would love to return to with the help of some concept art. Right. That it's really hard.
That's okay. That's okay. Not that.
No. Yeah. Too far, but that's kind of cool. I mean, I'm sure that people will come up with ideas that I would never possibly think of. And I would love to be able to see some different possibilities and return to that question with some concrete examples and see if we can figure out, a way that we would like to do it. That's very cool. So Katrin, this is your one example of some storyboard stuff, right?
Yes, that was the last one. Here this is not yet in a particular order. It's just me collecting shots that I can see so far. And I've also, the reason why it's a little more painterly is because I'm also trying to figure out the atmosphere and the mood of the scene. So the stick figure thing works mostly if you're trying to figure out shots, like what is shown, like which frame is shown, which perspective is shown, etc. And here I'm also trying a little to figure out how would we light it, how, yes, and it's basically just Lúthien, the treehouse escape is supposed to be when it's done, but yes. Right now it's more a mood board for a storyboard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, but this is like I love storyboards. I think storyboards are really, really fun. If my in my mind, like the ultimate like finished product of film, right?
Yeah,
would not realistically be a film production, but it could be scripts and storyboards, which would be awesome. Like that would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, storyboards are of course very time intensive because they're almost comics, but yes. As I said, they're also, you can produce them in varying pacing. You don't,
yes,
as with comics,
and to varying levels of degree. They don't have to be full comic book illustrations. Yeah.
And you don't have to maintain one pace throughout the whole thing, right? You don't have to say it has to feel like a continuous narrative. It has to be a little bit utilitarian. If you just have a scene of them, over the shoulder cuts, you can just say, we do this for the next minute and draw two bobbleheads. There you go.
Right. Cool. Very good. Well, thank you for those kind of examples and illustrations of both for the art itself, and we'll talk about some of those things in more detail when we come back to stuff at the end of the season. But those are great sort of illustrations of the kind of thing as well. All right. Well, now I did not forget that we're doing a drawing. Drawing has been open like the entire time. So I will remind folks who arrived late that on Twitch we're doing a drawing and we're giving away a free space token. So if you're on our Twitch chat, if you're not, you can still get there. Go to twitch.tv/SignumU. And if you are in Twitch, then you can just type !raffle and you will be entered into the drawing, which I will close in just a second. So I'm going to give you this chance to do that while I tell you what's happening next. So our next session is going to be on Thursday, December 8th. So we're going to be 3 weeks from now instead of 2 weeks from now. We're going to have a little disruption to the schedule, but not too much. So our next session will be on December 8th, and we'll be discussing episode 5. So episode 5 is the Nargothrond. We're getting to Nargothrond, right? From Beren's arrival to Nargothrond to Lúthien's escape from Nargothrond, or no?
No. Lúthien will be
That's
in
6.
Treehouse for episode 5.
Right. So Treehouse and Nargothrond. Yeah.
So Lúthien
but
will be
the abdication is in.
Yeah. So Finrod and company are leaving Nargothrond at the end of episode 5.
Right. Okay. So that's what we have coming up here in episode 5, which is what we'll be talking about on the 8th of December. And the next script discussion, which is episode 10, you guys are being so good, staying way ahead of things there, is going to be on Friday, December 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So, and Marie, remind folks how people can navigate to find the discussion boards, where is the best place for them to post if they do concept art and want to send it to us? What's the best way for them to do that?
Right. So it's forums.signumuniversity.org, right?
Org, yeah.
I think sounds
Yeah.
right. I'm not actually
forums.signumuniversity.org, and then
Right.
yep.
So then
And
there's film, and then you can, if you have something for the props or the setting, you can put it there. If you have something for costumes, there's a section for that. So whatever your art is, whether it's locations or whatever, just put it in the right place, and you can start a thread for the topic if there's not one already there
Cool.
under season 6. So anything that's in the season 6 subforum for any of those topics, that's what's going to be used to collect the images for the final thing at the end.
Neat. Awesome. Yeah, and feel free if you I think it would be cool to discuss, even if you don't have the chance to like do a drawing, if you don't have the chance or perhaps the talent to do a drawing, but if you had like some concrete ideas that you wanted to suggest, you could post those there as well.
Yeah. It's for discussion of all these things. And
Yeah.
so like for locations, we usually post images of scenes from around the world of like, oh, this could be like this or that. So you don't have to draw something to contribute it.
Yeah.
It's a discussion of visuals.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, of course, it's always nerve-wracking to post something unfinished, but if it's not like intended for the finished thing, also a very simple sketch can help to convey something that you might write, like paragraphs like this.
Right.
As long as everyone understands that it's not supposed to be pretty yet.
And some people have even done Minecraft builds to illustrate things.
It's true. It's true. I seem to remember Minecraft Nargothrond at some point. Yes. Absolutely.
And
Okay,
Gondolin?
cool. So yeah, so
An apartment building in Gondolin, yes.
yeah,
Which is definitely the more time-consuming of all of those, by quite a bit.
cool. Yeah. So the script discussion is on Friday the 2nd of December, Arnurian. Yeah, at 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna do before we go, I'm gonna do the drawing. Okay, and hey, JJ is the winner.
Hey.
Congratulations, JJ. All right. So JJ, send an email to info@signumu.org and we'll get you connected. So congratulations, JJ. All right. Don't forget, folks, this Saturday, the 19th of November at 1 p.m. Is the big event at Signum for our fundraising finale there, starting at 1 p.m. To tune in for my State of the University address, and then moving forward, bunches of updates and features for a lot of things that are going on at Signum University. It's going to be a fun day, so that'll be 1 p.m. on Saturday. Definitely want to invite you to that. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks everybody. Katrin, special thanks to you for joining us, and again, double special thanks for getting up at 4 a.m. To join us there from Switzerland. Serious dedication. Really appreciate it. I hope you'll be able to join us again for our art discussion later on at the end of the season as well. So it'd be good to have you back for that.
I this time I had the luxury that I could go to bed reasonably early, and
that's good.
Didn't have like any important like things that I needed to be super awake for exactly at 7 a.m. or something, so that's fine.
Good.
Sometimes
Excellent.
it's a little hard, especially.
It is. Yeah. And I would have moved it to a more convenient time, like 2 a.m. Eastern, which would have been 8 for you, but that might have been less convenient for others. So anyway, we'll figure it out. Anyhow, thanks everybody for joining us, and I will say, as always, thanks for listening and Godspeed.